welcome to CSTV. We are back with another session to understand the ongoings in India and around us. Today we will be talking about tropical cyclones. I'm Kavya Dubey, Deputy Editor of CSTV, in conversation with Shri K.Siddhartha, a renowned earth scientist. He's been advisor to various state and international governments. Sir, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So tell us, is there a way to scientifically avert cyclones, such as by way of cloud seeding or any other, so that its destructive impact is minimized on land?
Scientifically, there is no way that you can go to avert a cyclone. That's not possible. What is possible is that sometimes maybe that you are scientifically very well developed, like what United States is. What they're going to do is that they go on to have an aeroplane that is meant only for seeding the cyclone. And they're going to take that aeroplane, which is going to be an all-weather aeroplane, and they go on to seed it in the clouds. Now, seeding means that the cyclone generates and cyclone deposits and debauches all of its water much before it can go on to impact any ascribed region. That means the basic effort in this case is to minimize the damage that can be done by the cyclone by allowing all of its impact to be felt in the oceans itself. Since tropical cyclones take birth only in the oceans and only in the oceans, consequently, it is somewhat easy. Otherwise, people have toyed with that idea of having a reflector that will go on to reflect a lot of sun rays coming onto the earth as well, which will go to prevent tropical cyclones not taking place. Of course, this is utopian. That doesn't go to be looking having any type of possibility as well. Then they can always go on to think about changing the track of the cyclone by bringing about certain type of changes in the water currents, because cyclones happen to follow a track. The cyclones happen to follow certain type of a desired path, and this path can be slightly changed as well. Can be slightly. It's not 100% possible. So when we're going to be talking about it, can we scientifically prevent it? The answer is no. What we can go on to do is that we can go to forecast it much more in advance. We can go on to bring about mechanism by way of which people can be warned about it much before a cyclone can go on to take place. We can also go on to bring about a lot of other changes which is going to be associated with in decreasing the intensity of the cyclone or converting the entire of the cyclone into, if you ask me, into energy. So cyclone in that case will not go on to be a disguise, it will go on to become a blessing of sorts. If you are able to convert so much amount of an energy that a tropical cyclone carries into energy generation.
Since cyclones are periodic events, some protocol for preparedness ought to be enforced in the vulnerable areas. What disaster management steps must be taken to avert or avoid the destruction caused by cyclones, and to minimize the loss of life and property?
There are, we can go to talk about slew of measures which can go on to prevent and which can go on to minimize the impact and the damage. One of them is, of course, is going to be structural mitigation measures. Now, structural mitigation measures, that means you have a cyclone shelter. Now, these cyclone shelters are going to be above the surface, at least 10, 15 feet above the surface, so that these shelters are able to prevent any type of a damage because of a storm surge. That's one. Most of these shelters are completely round in shape, so much so that the high-speed winds are not able to affect these shelters as well. Third is that all of these shelters are made self-sufficient. Self-sufficient because people who are going to be living in those shelters and they are going to live for not for a day or two, maybe for 5 or 6 days as well, till the tropical cyclones go on to be in their full fury of sorts. And of course, post measures as well. That means people can go to move out of that region. But then you can go to imagine that it has been known that the design and maintenance considerations are the main focal points. But other than that, there are going to be many disaster response mechanisms. One of these mechanisms in this case is developing what we're going to talk about lead time cyclone hazard impact assessment. Lead time. That means like a lead. What you're going to do is that business goes into developing a lead. In a similar manner, a cyclone also can go on to be talked about in a certain manner, which will go on to develop a lead. That means you're going to develop a lead that a cyclone is going to be generating. For example, we are right now talking about a lead itself of a cyclone that is being generated in Indian Ocean. We are talking about the most recent one, and you know that which one is it? That is Yaas. That's the one that we are talking about. Second is, of course, developing emergency rescue and evacuation plans. That means this is significant because you require to have a built-in backup by way of redundancy. That means you require to have one mechanism. If that fails, there is going to be a second one. If that fails, there is going to be a third one. And if that fails, there is going to be a fourth one also that is going to be ready in this case. That's and that is what emergency has to take care of it. And we are getting equipped more and more in this case. Then integrating cyclone hazard impact assessment. That means what can go on to happen if a cyclone goes to really affect a region. Hazard impact assessment. Appropriate warning dissemination system. For example, you may have seen that the district magistrate of the concerned region, he go out, organizes the entire of the machinery, and sounds loud and saying that is see, a cyclone is going to be coming to this place, and because a cyclone is going to be coming to this place, you must go to do this, and this. All the fishermen must go to come back. Now that is going to be dissemination system in this case, and there are going to be some transport responder groups in the government as well who respond to it. And how is it that they can go to serve the communities there after? Then identifying those target group of people. This means people who are going to be getting affected. For example, in this case, it's the fishermen who are going to be getting affected who have been out into the sea. And if a cyclone is going to be in the offing, that is going to be coming, that is going to be affect the region, then these fishermen, if they remain at sea, they are in grave danger, because the level of the sea goes on to increase, the waves go on to become very furious, and you may have seen pictures of tropical cyclones, in this case, where a boat has been perched above a tree, a car has been above a roof. This is the fury of a tropical cyclone. We require also to have community level meetings in this case, and community level meetings because it is this community level meetings that is going to be done for the purpose of analyzing the risks and so forth. Development of the community feeling also, because during this time it is only a community feeling that is going to be most significant. Then generating public information tailored to meet target groups and making innovative use of the medium. Then we are talking about local benchmarks, a local mechanism for public representation, using survey to measure public awareness and satisfaction with respect to whatever relief measures that we have taken. And then thereafter, providing training to the social factors on a technical aspect, so that maybe the administration is going to be working, but at the same time, people are also going to be working with the administration. And when we are going to be talking about working with the administration alone cannot go to do a lot of things unless it goes to get a proper support of the people. And before a cyclone has to come, the most important part will be developing that is conducting exercises, simulations to enable people to experience a real cyclone. Now, these are some of these ways by way of which one can go on to manage the cyclone, one can go on to mitigate it, and one can go on to do a lot of, can control a lot of damage that can go to take place with the cyclone.
Cyclones cannot entirely be one country's disaster. These traveling winds, they traverse long distances and they drop their hints along the way. So some country along the coast somewhere must have observed a possible disaster that might be striking some land somewhere. So is it possible for countries to come together along these lines and devise a plan or a policy for the purpose of minimizing the destruction that's caused? To what extent is such an idea viable?
This is viable. India has been doing it, so you can go to call it as by the name of cyclone diplomacy as well. And when we are talking about, see, India has been able to help Sri Lanka, India has been able to help Oman, India helped Mozambique, India helped Somalia some of the times when these cyclones are actually going to be affecting the Indian Ocean rim countries, particularly those countries which are going to be lying towards the western portion of Indian Ocean. They have themselves asked, They have not asked any country other than India to come and help them. So that is going to be one part of it. Otherwise, supposing that such type of a cyclonic activity, tropical cyclone has taken place, then India can go on to forge a relationship, in this case with Bangladesh. Without India's aid, there is no way that Bangladesh can go on to manage its own cyclone. That is simply not possible. And why is it that we're going to say it so? We're going to say it so because the cyclone warning system is given by India. That's going to be one. Not only that, the cyclone warning system, how is it that Bangladesh, what type of a protocol that the Bangladeshi government will going to follow and the people will going to follow in the coastal regions? Because West Bengal and Bangladesh, both of them are going to be very close to each other. And because they are going to be very close to each other, then the effect in this case doesn't go on to differentiate political boundaries at all. So Bangladesh is going to be one of them with which we going to be having a close eye and we work together. Myanmar doesn't going to get affected as much because Myanmar lies on the eastern portion. Moreover, it lies more towards equator where the cyclones generate and they don't go to traverse Myanmar as much as they are likely to traverse the eastern coast of India as well as Bangladesh, both of them. And of course, the northern portion of Myanmar to an extent and to a small extent. The third is India does go on to use its data for the purpose of providing littoral countries of Indian Ocean. Where exactly is it that the cyclone will come? What exactly will be its fury? All of this data, because India has a certain type of satellites. It has weather satellites, MetSat it has, and MetSat has all the type of payloads which will go on to equip it to forecast tropical cyclones affecting Mozambique or Madagascar or maybe even Tanzania or any of these adjoining countries that are going to be on the coastal part. So all the cyclones have a source, that means they have a path, and that is what we going to follow.
Any thoughts about climate-resistant infrastructure, about redesigning cyclone-prone areas in a manner that this weather event does not bring normal life to a complete standstill?
Yes, there is. For example, this is what we're going to be calling it by the name of structural mitigation measures, and this will going to include buildings, designing of the buildings. You can't go to have the same design of a building that you're going to be having in NCR, and a similar design will go on to be in places like that of eastern portion of India. It's not possible. You can't go on to be having these type of structural measures in Kerala as well now. That is going to be one of them. Building design, including multi-purpose cyclone shelters as well. This is structural measure. Multi-purpose. That means this cyclone shelter is going to be functioning as a community hall when the cyclones are not there. It can go to work as a library. It can go on to work as a reformation center for the people in that region. And when there is a cyclone, it can go on to function as a hotel for people as well. It's like people can go on to find solace in this place, and it must have all the amenities. Now it goes on to become even more significant because people will have to make it in such a manner that if there are going to be good number of COVID affected people also, then they can go on to maintain social distancing. I mean, this has changed a lot of perception. Then we have to also design roads, culvert, bridges in the same manner, because the amount of downpouring that takes place, roads can be washed away, culverts can be broken, and you must have seen pictures where the water is actually flowing above the bridges in many cases. So bridges don't go to matter when a tropical cyclone comes, because the channels going to get filled up in no time at all, because the amount of downpouring takes place is simply humongous. It's very, very high. And the flow of water also goes into be in a similar manner. Canals, drains, and surface water tanks also required to be cleaned up. For example, if you go to take a look at in Chennai, Chennai has certain type of water tanks in this place. Now these water tanks must be cleaned because they are going to provide water to the whole of Chennai. And if it is that these water tanks are going to be full to the brim and you're going to prevent it, then they will start overtopping it. And when they overtop, ultimately you will have to open the gates and this will go on to a double fury of sorts. That means rain from the rain that is taking place from the cyclones and then a ground and the surface water that will go on to increase in a very fast manner, and that will go to wash away a lot of things. You will have to have saline embankments in this case. Saline embankment, that means an embankment that will be almost like a wall across the sea. That is saline embankment. And communication towers. Communication towers is significant because when the cyclones hit a region, ultimately we will have to reach your mobile. And if the communication towers fail, how is it that the government will communicate to you? And how is it that you will go to communicate with the government? And how is it that you will go to communicate with anyone else? So power transmission lines and networks, communication networks need to be very, very good and need to be very well developed in this region for this effect to take place.
The impact of cyclone can be felt in distant regions. The latest is the example of Cyclone Tokate, which hit the eastern coast, and the impact of that was felt in Delhi NCR region. It was raining all day, and the weather remained like that for days together, and it's very unnatural.
Tropical cyclones go on to have a path, that is swath, that is the track of the cyclone. They go on to follow this track, and it is this track when they go on to follow. Anything that comes in the track that goes on to have a high amount of rainfall in general. So, for example, you talked about Taute, that is what people have been talking about in Myanmar. Its swath and its track was extending all the way to Uttarakhand in this case. So, it rained in this place. Now, rainfall is not going to be a problem. In some places like Ahmedabad, the rain was accompanied by very high velocity wind. And that was where the problem is, because it can go on to blow up a lot of things in this case. It can go on to, it's because the wind velocity is going to be very, very high. But the moment the cyclone goes on to make a landfall, its wind speed decreases. And it decreases considerably. And as it keeps on moving on the land, the moment it keeps on moving more and more and more on the land, then in the process of this movement, this wind speed keeps on decreasing, but the rainfall remains. Now, such type of cyclone is a natural phenomenon. Now, when we say that it will going to affect agriculture, why affect agriculture? Any man-made activity is going to be affected by the cyclone. And when we say that any man-made activity is going to be affected, that means urban activity is affected, office work is going to be affected, agriculture is going to be affected in this case. But is it not that? Why is it that we have to, ethically you can go to say, that is, there is no way that we can go to talk about a cyclone affects say, agriculture in a deleterious manner, because agriculture is ultimately dependent on your weather conditions. And sometimes the weather can be good, sometimes that may not be so. So why is it that you have to pick up and choose only the negative impacts of a cyclone and that goes on to be affecting agriculture? Agriculture can be affected by so many things and cyclone is going to be one of them. So human beings always have to require to be adapted to such type of a condition rather than point out in a criticizing manner of sorts. And if you are criticizing nature, there is no way you can go to learn from nature, and there is no way you can go to manage nature also. And it also goes on to show a lot of values that you have or you don't have these values also. So criticizing nature that it affects agriculture doesn't going to serve our purpose at all.
Beyond the immediate impact of a cyclone, any suggestions on how to accept these weather events as a periodic occurrence, and what measures to take in order to cushion normal life from its impact as much as possible? I mean, in terms of travel and communication and livelihood.
The cyclones are natural phenomena. They will come. Come what may, they are going to be affecting India. We are blessed that cyclones affect us. That's the second part. Third is cyclones must come. Largely because if they don't come, then that is going to be a source of water for a good amount of region of India. We won't be able to have it here. The fourth is that these cyclones are a beauty. I have been a cyclone chaser. I know what it goes on to feel to be within the cyclone and in the center of a cyclone. I mean, such type of an experience, you cannot go on to have it. I thank God thousands of times to have given me eyes, to have given me a body which is able to see that, experience it, and in such a manner. Now, why is it goes on to become a hazard? Because you consider, you go start taking nature for granted. And you are inimical to getting yourself adjusted to nature. And when I say inimical, that means when you go on to reside in a cyclone-prone area, why should you complain that the cyclones go to affect you? Is it that human beings have been older than cyclones, or the cyclones are older than human beings? You just give me this answer. Who is older, cyclones or human beings?
Obviously, cyclones. The phenomena of cyclones.
Of course, and that means it was the choice of the people to have got themselves resided in those regions which are going to be affected by cyclones. So how is it that we can go to blame cyclones? You have to blame people only. You start living in a flood affected region and then you start complaining that, well, this is the region that goes into affected, that goes into have so many floods. That's not going to be good. So ultimately, the moment you start following an ethical dimension with respect to environment, an ethical dimension means understand nature, respect nature. There are three things that you must go to respect, and that is what has been in India for something like 15,000 years. That is, they said that the moment you start disrespecting any of these three, then you stop learning. One of them is nature. That's one. And why is it that you have to respect nature? Because the only constant in nature is change. Come what may, it will keep on changing. You have to accept that part. It was your choice to have picked up India for the purpose of your habitation. It was your choice to have picked up areas close to that of cyclonic activity and cyclonic region. It was your choice to have imagined the beauty of the rains when it goes on to rain. Sometimes the wind speed goes into high. Why is it that you should be criticizing at all? That's one. You shouldn't also be criticizing your parents and teachers because you stop learning from them. The moment you start criticizing any one of them, you stop learning from them. So cyclones are something to learn. Cyclones come with so much amount of benefit. Without cyclones, there is no way that you can go to cultivate sugarcane in South India. Cyclones are an energy system. Cyclones go to clean your coastal regions. Cyclones are also responsible for churning of the atmosphere. Without this churning, the atmosphere is not going to get cleaned also. Cyclones are also responsible for bringing a sense of a relief from maybe you talked about North India. That means people were so pleasantly surprised that they were not experiencing sweltering heat associated with May. It was almost like it was a sound in the month of May for good number of people in the northern part of the country, all the way from Rajasthan up till Uttarakhand as well. So that's the first part. Environmental ethics, you have to understand it from an ethical point of view. Cyclones are going to come. They are beautiful portions of nature. From another angle, what you can go to do is that is you have to get yourself adjusted, understand that nature can be unforgiving sometimes. That is going to be. And there is nothing that you can go to do about it except understand nature, don't take it for granted. And when you go on to get the slightest hint, you can go to run away from it. Do you know that the Jarawa Anjas tribes, they ran away because they knew in advance that there was a tsunami that was going to come. A state-of-the-art car Nicobar was not able to, that was an Air Force base with all the equipment there. They could not go on to know that a tsunami was going to come. But these people, who we want to call it as a primitive race, this is the word that we use, judgmental word for them. And they proved ultimately much more wiser because they ran away from a tsunami and suited themselves to a high area. Not even a single Jarawa, Sentinelese or Anjas were killed by a tsunami. Not even one. So this is what is adjusting with the nature, respecting the nature also as well. So this is one way. Of course, second is understand it, know about it, disseminate this information, develop technologies for this purpose, and also develop a cyclone mitigation measures to an extent. Have a forge a competitive feeling so that in any type of an eventuality, you don't go to start blaming the people and the government and that the government never did this or that. And this is what most of the people in our country going to do. In the extreme of problems, they start blaming the government without actually moving away towards finding towards having a solution-oriented thinking.
With that, we conclude this session. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to Siddhartha for giving us his time and sharing such amazing information with us, and especially for sensitizing us to environmental ethics, for making us understand that nature is best adapted to and that we cannot adjust nature to suit us and our convenience. Thank you.
To have more such discussion and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. And if you like the video, please do not forget to hit the like button so that we get inspired to give more such discussions in the coming future.